Sound speeds, and welcome back to Mass Mics. Now, before we go and unmask the two microphones that are masked before me, let me say this. If you have not yet watched the other videos in the Mass Mic series, you're going to want to stop right now and watch them in sequential numbered order. Because just like with your favorite cliffhanger TV series, they only make sense when you watch them in order. Trust me on that and thank me later. But for right now, let's go ahead and unmask these microphones, starting with microphone number 1, the Sennheiser MKH-40. And Sennheiser also has the MKH-416, which is mass mic number 2. Why am I comparing these two microphones today? Well, you could consider this one to be the workhorse of the professional film industry. Used along with its big brother, the 816, for the past few decades, they've been a very common combination of microphones. If you were going to be within about 3 or 4 feet of someone's face, of someone's mouth, you would use the 416. And if you were going to be farther than that and you still wanted to get them on a boom, you'd resort to the 816, more rejection, farther reach. But this microphone, for that reason, also found itself into automated dialogue replacement, or ADR sessions, which is basically when you replace the audio from production audio, like if you were recording in a noisy environment while shooting a movie and you had to replace the audio because it wouldn't work well for the movie otherwise. They needed to have a microphone that matched the location work. And one of the common microphones that were used was the 416. So they realized that if they got it and added it to their microphone locker, it would work really well and very effectively. Now, that's how it ended up in a lot of mic lockers in ADR studios. However, the 40 is a cardioid pattern microphone. And because a lot of voiceover microphones are cardioid, I felt it was good to introduce you to the 40 just alongside of the 416 so you could hear the two of them together. Now, it is $200 more at, $1,000 for the 416 and $1,200 for the 40. But there's kind of a reason for that. Remember, this is a grandfather. This is the father. There's a new generation of microphones, and that's what this is. MKH-20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and 70 are all in a series. And it goes from omnidirectional, binaural, cardioid, which is the 40, then the 50 is a super cardioid, then you have a super cardioid shotgun, which is the 60, and then the long super cardioid shotgun, which replaced the 816, or as another microphone. But there are some other similarities and differences as well. As a matter of fact, most of the characteristics between these two microphones are similar. They are 40 to 20,000 hertz. They have the same sensitivity at 25 millivolts, which translates to about 32 decibels of preamp gain. They're both identical in that. As a matter of fact, only really with regards to the pattern, which is a super cardioid short shotgun pattern and cardioid pattern right over here, and the fact that they are both have different impedance levels, really everything else is about the same. I mean, obviously their dimensions are different. This is, I think, 250 millimeters long, and this one here is 153 millimeters long, so it's about a difference of about 10 centimeters. And aside from that, the diameter, 20 millimeters versus 25 millimeters. And there's a slightly wider capsule here. What do wider capsules do? What if it's a bigger capsule? It's going to basically fatten up it's going to give a little bit more low end to close up miking. Now, obviously, I'm not using windscreens or anything on these. I want you to hear them in crystal clear fidelity, the way it would be if you're not using a windscreen on them. And in all honesty, if you're using this in a voiceover type environment, then it's quiet around you and you can easily gain it up and not hear any background noise. But if you were really going to be far away from it, then a 416 is probably what you would want to have if your voice was going to be too far away from your microphone. But in a voiceover environment, it's not really. So there's my comparison between these two and the reason why I'm comparing the two together today. What did you think? Which one do you prefer and which one would you get in a voiceover type environment? Tell me in the comment section down below. I'm very much interested in hearing what your thoughts are. But in the meantime, I think that there are two new mask mics that we might want to mask and bring forth to you today. Get your listening ears on because we have two new microphones that we're going to be comparing in this episode. But before we get to the story, why don't we start with the noise floor test? To compare these microphones, I thought I'd tell you a fun story that took place my 8th grade year. I went to a Catholic private school back then, and this was getting near the end of the school year, and we had a field day, so we did not have to wear uniforms for this trip to Chattanooga, which, because my school was in the metro Atlanta area, it was about a 2 to 2.5 hour drive via bus up there to Chattanooga. And being that it was our senior year, I guess you could say, we were going to be going into high school the following year, they decided to go all out and really do a nice, fun field trip for us. So we went up to Chattanooga. We saw Rock City. We went to Point Lookout, or I guess whatever it's called, where you see like 10 different states from this one little place up on this hill, and, you know, things like that. We were there, and then on our way back to Atlanta, we stopped off at this McDonald's. And back in that era, you could just pull up there with a bus full of kids, and they would just let you loose. They'd say, okay, well, here's a McDonald's right here, and we encourage you to go there, but there's a Wendy's next door, there's like a whatever here, and there's another place there. Feel free to just come back here in like half an hour. And across the field from where we were, there was a Dairy Queen. And about 5 or so of us decided we were going to go over there. And we walked across this big, huge field in this hot weather that was probably getting near the 85-degree mark because it was in May of that year. And so we got to the Dairy Queen, and having never heard of a blizzard before, everybody was getting a blizzard. And they're like, oh, look, this is kind of like a milkshake. It's a very thick milkshake. And I heard something that you can like hold them upside down and the ice cream doesn't fall out. I'm like, yeah, right. We were all saying, yeah, right to that. But you know, we had no experience of blizzards back then. And we were only used to like dilly pops or whatever the things were that we would have, the little popsicle looking things, or, you know, other things that we would have, the ice creams and the dipped ice cream cones and whatever. So when a couple of them were like, oh, well, no, I'm going to get a blizzard. Look at all these flavors. I'm going to make a Butterfinger blizzard or whatever the combination was. I'm like, that sounds like a good thing. We're going to give that a shot. And it didn't help a whole lot for the case against trying to get something else when we said, is it true that you can hold this upside down and it doesn't fall out? And the Dairy Queen person that made it, as soon as he brought him over there, he grabs it by the bottom, he flips the thing upside down and then turns it back over to you. And you're like, he just turned that thing upside down. It's so thick that nothing fell out of the cup. Kind of amazing. By now, I'm sure you already know that Dairy Queen makes thick, you know, ice cream in their blizzards. But back then it was like, whoa. That's like the mouth of the thing is this big. How did it not come out? Because it's very liquid-like. You could still pick it out very easily with a spoon. It's amazing. You know, 8th graders, you know, right? You know, kind of amazing to everything. So I was tripped out by that, and I said, I got to get one for myself. But I was nervous about turning it upside down. And this is not in the era where they used to just automatically flip it upside down as they delivered it to you because it was a selling feature. It was one of those things that they still told you about, but they didn't necessarily do it to every single person unless you asked about it or you specifically did it yourself. But regardless, I wanted to do it, but I was nervous about dropping my ice cream. So I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. So we start walking across this field, going back over, and people were like, yeah, man, look, it's still working right now. And, you know, turning it upside down over their hands, you know, by this point, they're like getting nervous because they've had some of it. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot too. So I flip it upside down in my hand. And remember when I said it was hot? It was hot. And it was starting to turn into more of a liquid. So that blizzard went straight into the palm of my hand. A lot of it went through my fingers and all over the ground. They, of course, burst out laughing. I was like, oh, no, my blizzard's right there on the ground now in the dirt where I can't do anything about it. I took everything I could and put it back in the blizzard, but, you know, some of it was gone, and I guess some insects or whatever got a very cold little treatment to their house or something. I don't know. Anyway, that was my story for this particular episode. Hopefully that was kind of fun. You can imagine an 8th grader being kind of like, oh no, they want my ice cream. But was that enough to tell you which of these two microphones you like more? Is it microphone number 1? Is it microphone number 2? I'm not going to reveal what they are in this episode. You're going to have to come back to the next episode for that one. But until then, it'll be my secret. Take care. Have a question you'd like answered or want to add something? Be sure to write it in the comment section down below. You can also make a suggestion for future topics of discussion. Again, comment section down below, or you can email me at soundspeeds@yahoo.com. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss out on future sound advice.